Welcome to another segment of Beyond the Grassy Knoll. And our guest today is somebody who has been a bit of a correspondent, more or less, for a little bit of time, I guess probably over a year. He also kept in touch with the Uticans for 9/11 Truth, Andy Sr. and Herb Smith. And so we all kind of exchanged emails and got a pulse kind of what was happening in each's venue. And his name is Jeffrey Long. He is involved with the DC 9/11 Truth Movement and also with a publication called the Rock Creek Press, which we'll talk about as well. But Jeffrey, listen, thanks for coming on. Glad that you were, willing to talk about, what you saw on your watch.
Well, I do appreciate that. Thanks for getting me on here.
Well, let's do this.
Okay.
As encyclopedically as you can, in terms of being supposedly objective, can you tell us about the origin of the DC 9/11 group, when that happened, who were the driving principles in it, etc.?
What I can do, I can do a part of that because I got into the group about 3 years ago. 1 October, so just a little bit over 3 years ago. And when I got there, when I heard about it, I had, maybe it's almost 4 years now, I heard about the group through a listserv somewhere, and had moved up here recently for a job up to D.C. and was looking for somebody to actually talk to about this kind of stuff. And when I found the group, when I first got there, I'd gone to about 4 meetings in a row. They'd hold one once a week, and I was just getting my feet wet, seeing what was going on, just sitting in the background watching. And what I'd sort of learned was that the group had started maybe a year and a half before that. Just a couple people. People involved: Matt Sullivan, Dave Schlesinger, a friend of mine, Joe, just a couple other people, but it just kind of started up, seemed like organically, for a need for the people that were getting into 9/11's research around the D.C. area. So I got into it maybe a year and a half, 2 years into what they were doing, and at that point there were probably about, looks like 20, 25 people that were going to the meetings. And one thing that I've noticed after being in it for so long and working with a group is that between 20 and 30 people is where the numbers stay. It's never really grown. It's always stayed around that same amount. A couple people might come in, hear about the group, want to check it out, come and sit in a meeting, but then the people would never return.
Do you think you ever had any unwanted visitors, so to speak?
Oh, well, yeah, definitely. I mean, that part is just too easy. I mean, it'd be one thing if you were doing a 9/11 group out in Iowa and getting a couple of Fed trolls coming out to watch over, infiltrate your group for the most part. But here, it's probably as easy as, one Fed asking another, if he wants to go grab a beer after work. He's like, no, actually, I got to go downtown and infiltrate the DC group, see what it is that they're doing.
Can you tell them by their? We know they all have government issued clothes for their job. It's usually the blue blazer and the gray slacks. Do they have any kind of? And I'm saying this tongue in cheekly, but do they have any kind of government issue casual clothes? Can you pick them out by their Izod shirts or what?
That would be the easiest part. But it just seems like it's definitely more the personality, the stories that they build, the way that they act. I mean, when you start getting into this stuff and you start really researching back to the Martin Luther King days, the COINTELPRO programs and the stuff that they're doing, you see some of the same things going on. And I mean, one thing from the outset when I joined the group was to let them know that I've got an old intelligence background from way back during the Cold War. Did that for 6 years. And I was working for all the creeps because it was like a joint intelligence center overseas. And the stuff that I saw that was going on at that time, once I got out, I was happy to be away. They tried to keep me in, but I mean, I was working for all the jackasses, and I just didn't like the stuff that was going on. Seeing it from behind the scenes and being involved in some of these Mockingbird programs and what we were going after against the Soviet Union at the time. So
well, let
once
me
I
ask
was
you
done
this:
with that, I was just happy.
when you use the terminology, they wanted to keep me in. Did they do that by way of sweetening the deal, or by kind of wrenching your arm behind your back?
No, it was more when I told everybody that I wanted to get out. That a lot of my friends did, because I was in Air Force intelligence. The Joint Center was all branches of DoD, and it was CIA, NSA, DIA, NPIC, everybody that you could think of, and the people that don't really have acronyms, and they just thought it was absurd that anybody would do anything like that and want to leave it all behind. All I wanted was my GI Bill, the money for school. That was the whole reason why I went in. And I went in as a graphic designer, went to their design school and some intelligence stuff out in Denver, and that's all I wanted to do. And then they kind of sucked me up into an intelligence role and told me that I was going to be working in Germany and to not get comfortable with what I was doing there at that school when I first got into the Air Force.
That school meaning out in Denver?
What's that?
When you were saying to get not too comfortable with that school, is that the one that was out in Denver?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. They, even up through basic training, they kept pulling me out of all the classes that I was in, and they kept sticking me into these rooms with a couple other handful of people that I never got to talk to. But they were always giving us these battery of tests, all these psychological tests, and all I wanted to do, being an artist with my background, wanted to do graphic design, was just do that for the Air Force. I wanted to stay on at the school in Denver. My idea was that I would do my whole term, wind up teaching at the school, because I'd already looked into that, and get out from that point and just move on. But with all the tests that they kept throwing onto me to do, I could see how they were trying to manipulate me into a certain area to see if I would, at least from what I could gain from the test, that if I would be willing to do certain different things in different programs in the Air Force. And so I was purposely manipulating as best I could these tests so that I'm like, well, no, I don't want to do that. I'm afraid of heights. I'm afraid of weapons. Whatever it seemed to be pointing to, I was like, no, I would just fail as best I could, and did that for several weeks. And once I finished basic training, got sent to Denver. That's the point where everybody's getting their orders for their schools, and a few of us, they said, don't get comfortable. You've already got orders for your next duty station. And that's when they told me that time for me to start filling out my paperwork for a background investigation by the FBI, because I was going to be filling an intelligence slot doing graphic design over in Europe for this Joint Intelligence Center.
Okay, so how did that work out? Did you just do a 4-year hitch and leave?
I did 6 years.
6 years.
And that was through the end of I did all that through the end of the Cold War. And once the Soviet Union supposedly fell, of course, the more that we look back in history and see what really went on with that, we see that there was a lot more at play there, and there was just more of a more of a control issue and a fake banker war, just a way for them to create opposition and for the military-industrial complex to make a ton of money. So I helped get the intelligence unit closed down and moved over to England at that time, and we closed down the unit that was there in Germany and kind of give it back to the Germans at that time. And because the end of that part of the Cold War, part of what we were doing, we were flying spy missions every day through the Berlin corridors at the time for almost 50 years, and that part of the program had closed up at the end as well. So it was literally just a handful of people left to close everything up and hand over the keys to the Germans at the time. So I had told them that, I didn't want to test for, I was an NCO, and I did not want to test for staff sergeant. And they just thought it was absurd, and they were trying to keep me in. And I just said, no, I just want to go back to the States, go to school, and do what I really want to do. So there was a lot of pressure that way. And the same thing with them telling me that how important my clearance was, and for the kind of work that I did, that I could easily transfer into one of the private sector areas or one of the Fed sectors. And I was like, no thanks. I've seen a little bit too much, and just I don't really approve. That was the point that I moved on.
So what brought you to D.C. obviously was another employment opportunity, wasn't it?
Yeah, out of Florida, and that was 2005. So I came up here for a creative director's position in the Northern Virginia area, just over the bridge from D.C. And I've been here ever since, even though I've worked at a couple different places. But same thing, I've been doing graphic design for the last 20 years or so, a little bit more. I just happened to start out with my career doing it in intelligence for what seemed to be the way that we've grown up, the Cold War, the Red Menace, and everything they kept pushing down our throats, protecting ourselves from the Soviet Union. So I wanted to do my part, and once I got into it, I was like, there's a lot of sketchy stuff going on here that I really don't approve of. Because I would sit there in the mornings in the secure skiff reading message traffic, and instead of reading the paper in the morning, I would just read what all the agents reporting in were doing in their operations around that theater, the European theater, Russia, Middle East, Africa, and I would get the unadulterated content, and that was exciting to read at the time, especially for somebody so young coming out of the orange groves in Florida, to be reading all this message traffic. And that's when I started seeing some of these operations being reported in New York Times or Washington Post, different publications, a couple months down the road, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's how they're trying to explain this thing that went on. I'm like, there's just no way. That's where I could first see the components of all the manipulation when it came to the Mockingbird components, and then some of the propaganda that I was designing to go back behind the Iron Curtain at that time during my stint over there. So that's when I just didn't put any faith into the media whatsoever. I could see that that it was being manipulated. I can't remember what it was being called for what we were doing. They weren't calling it Mockingbird, but that's when I just kind of turned around and said, I don't want to be a part of this kind of stuff anymore. So I mean, that kind of dovetails into questioning everything about 9/11, and eventually getting into working on the Rock Creek Free Press, the paper that we put out that goes across the the nation. So the most of it we put out here in the different metro boxes around D.C. And there are subscriptions that people sign up for and get the paper to disseminate that kind of news. So I don't mind. I like focusing my attention on that end of it and working on a real newspaper that's just kind of sticking it to the regular media, and especially watching how they're folding up tents left and right.
That is, if I remember, that's a broadsheet, isn't it? I mean, it's a pretty substantial newspaper.
Yeah. Oh, it would be much larger than the 8 pages that we put out, but what keeps it that size, mainly for the amount of time put involved, but also the mailing, to keep it under specific mail guideline pricing for the paper to go out as cheaply as it does, because the paper is specifically funded just through subscriptions. People spend $20 a year, and they'll get it mailed to them. Okay. And through those donations, it's what kind of helps pay for the paper. Okay. Matt Sullivan, who created it, put some of it out of pocket into the paper itself. And if it goes any larger than the 8 pages, then there's a huge spike in the price for it. So it just, since we don't accept any advertisers with any kind of funding, everything is just pretty much out of pocket and through subscriptions.
All right, how many issues do you endeavor to put out a year? I mean, are you looking at 50 to 52, or?
That would be nice. It started out 3 years ago, doing it every 2 months. Okay. And last year, at the beginning of the year, it went to a monthly edition. Excuse me. So if it would be nice to go twice a month, or even if we had real funding to be able to do it weekly. But at that point, you'd have to bring in some pretty big, deep pockets for something like that.
Yeah, because that's a full-time operation, and obviously, it's nice that people do things out of voluntarism. But when you get to that situation, you got to have some people full-time and in on that all the time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just remember your stories talking about what you were doing for the paper around there and how much time it was taken out. And here, between some of the group activities and then doing the stuff with the creek, that's just like a full-time process, especially for something that's not bringing in an income and people aren't being paid for it. It'd be nice to be able to grab the Rocky Mountain News, the Denver paper that just folded.
Yeah.
Be able to take that on. But I would love to be able to put this out as at least a weekly and crank the stuff out. Right now I'm just trying to rework the website for the paper, because that was just kind of started out in the beginning when Matt put it together, and it was just kind of left to the side with just a couple updates here and there. Just not a very viable portal to go to get any information, because all the time involved was putting out the physical paper and getting it printed and having it shipped back and shipped across the country to where it needed to go. So at this point, I'm just trying to completely revamp the site with Matt and make it like a daily news portal for people to actually go to, because it would be nice to, from the point of getting one paper out and a month later getting the next paper out to the masses, there's so much that goes on in between, and getting some of those news items into the paper, by the time you send it off to the printer and get it back, so much has changed. It'd be nice to be able to get some daily content in there to fill some of the holes and get a lot more traffic and more people to actually wake up a little bit. And of course, it's a paper that covers so many topics. It's just not all 9/11 at all. It just kind of covers the broad spectrum of what all the creeps are doing with all the health aspects, how they're kind of attacking us personally, whether it's vaccines or water fluoridation. I mean, you name it.
First of all, let me ask you at this point, because we'll come back and revisit the Rock Creek Press.
Right.
What is the URL? Is it rockcreekpress.com? What is it?
It's rockcreekfreepress.com.
Okay. All right. People can go check that out. And I want to also say, you just reminded me, too, that there is a part of you anyway that is kind of a watchdog with regard to allopathic medicine, and I'm glad you mentioned that. And I want to get into the DC 9/11 Truth Movement. But before we go there, I just want to ask you a take on this because, well, I'll just ask because I think I'll know the response. Did you see or hear or watch the news when it came out with the conclusion about 3 weeks ago that vaccinations have nothing to do with autism?
I didn't see that portion of it, but it was being discussed through the DC 9/11 group. So I saw through the discussion what was going on with it and the absurdity behind it.
Oh, my! And the thing is, I've known personally some people who really don't want to believe in conspiracies. And that doesn't mean they're false. It means that there's something nasty going on in secret, which, of course, the world is full of, and who would rather not deal with that. But through what they saw happen to a child compared to what happened to other children, et cetera, had no other choice but to come down on the fact that their child was vaccination injured,
Mm-hmm.
and are completely confident that that's where it came from. So at any rate, to me, it's a slap in the face to all those people. I mean, this thing didn't come up with a bunch of wacky people. This is over time, and people wonder, where did this come from? And we don't have to go through the whole thing here. And for them to come down with the decision, no, there's nothing that connects it. To me, I don't know. It was just, it's like a sledgehammer coming down on an egg. You know what I mean? It's like, you bastards. You bastards. So.
Well, the part that people forget is just months ago, Supreme Court with that one couple, I think the husband was a lawyer, the wife was a doctor, I can't remember which, and they were suing, and they actually won in the Supreme Court, and that's when it came out, originally saying that, vaccines are tied into this, and they do cause autism. And then with a little bit of digging, then you see that, there's actually a vaccine court. Why would they have a vaccine court? And then it goes back to like 1988 with this law where they've been paying out families. I think that there are like 11 major cases where they've paid out families due to the injuries caused by vaccines alone. So people have a short attention span when it comes to something like that. And I've also noticed too that a lot of people that I cannot talk to about 9/11 and even bring that up as a component that something shady was going on, that you just can't trust your government. That you never really could, but everybody seems to think that they can put faith in their surrogate parents, their Uncle Sam and Lady Liberty,
yep.
As if they're, they keep getting beat over the head by these nasty parents, the federal government, and then they keep running back to them as if they're going to save them. But go ahead.
No, Jeffrey, I just wanted to resonate with you. I was with a group in back of somewhat of a health and organic meat and poultry and dairy provider. They all knew that the government was giving it to them with regard to, obviously, the purity or the lack thereof of the food they were eating, and ironically also trying to close down those outlets, that did not get involved with that kind of defilement of the product. And of course, they're the ones that the USDA and the FDA clamped down on. So they understood that government was giving it to them in the rear end. But then when you suggest to them that same government, by the way, is also giving it to you in the rear end about 9/11, a lot of other things, man, they turned on me like I was a raw piece of beef in a coyote, huddle. And I'm like, you idiots. And I just said, look, and I had to get out. I said, look, good for you. Yeah, Ron Paul's going to save the day. Right. You know what I mean? And I don't have to say anything more. The government that you know is giving it to you is giving it to you there too. It's the same damn government, idiots.
Well, it's
So,
the same corrupt system that everybody keeps thinking that they're going to get into the corrupt system and change it for the better. It's bad from the get-go. It's just not going to happen.
And I don't mean to trivialize it. And I got to put this on a website. I've been holding it back. A listener sent it to me, and I'm sorry. It's sardonic and it's sarcastic, and but it's the truth. And that is from the movie Spinal Tap, a photo of them turning up the volume to 11. Yeah, right. Because they don't get it, you jerks. But it's 11. It doesn't matter. It's the U.S. It doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It's all corrupt government over people, and you guys don't get it because it's 11. Need I say more?
Yeah. Well, I see the 9/11 as being the televised 2-hour movie of the week. It was the shock and awe portion of it that they needed to get people to buy into all the garbage that they were going to start pushing out. Because up to that point, you could still hear people bitch and moan about hearing some politician on TV talk about whatever it was, and at that point, they're like, oh, but they're just a politician. Nobody believes anybody up on Capitol Hill. To after that day, everybody just falling in the line because they were so scared at what happened, and they just don't see it as a component of a much larger picture plan, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was just a huge televised black op that got everybody to fall into line to tell this creepy story. With what we're talking about there about the health issues, like I was saying before, that one of my best friends that I used to work with in intelligence back when we were very young, and great friendship for 20 years, traveled the world, running around, and the health aspects, the DVDs I give him of those, talking about vaccines and some of these other things, he gets. But when I tried to show him something about 9/11, and have been for the past couple years, he's just like, get that out of my house. He just does not want to see it. I told him, just hold on to it, maybe you'll look at it later. He's like, no. And he'd just start laughing uncomfortably. Get it out of my house. I don't want to see it. And he actually took it and dropped it on the floor. And then he started getting copies of The Creek in the mail, and then he called me up and just railed on me one morning on a voicemail, just told me to never call again, never email, don't write letters, nothing. He was done with it. And I just think that he's in fear of actually dealing with what actually happened, and that he knows in the back of his mind that it's true, because he's a very bright guy, works for an Ivy League school, and he's just afraid of, he just brought 2 new family members. He's got 2 young kids, brought them into the world. He's working for one of these creepy Ivy League schools, and I can only imagine. I don't have any kids. I'm not married, but at this point, there's just no way I could bring anybody into this world knowing what's going on, and the more that I get into all this stuff. I just, for the most part, when I can't get some people outside of that friend of mine to look at anything about 9/11, I show them. I've been going this whole route over the past year and a half of pushing the disease industry and exactly what it is, just another financial grab, and what they're doing. It's like some sort of slow eugenics program, and they get that. Because they've been dealing with this health stuff for the longest time.
Oh yeah.
And once they realize how bad, how deep it goes, then some of these people will actually start buying off onto some of the 9/11 issues. They're like, oh wow, okay, now I finally get it. I can see. They see the same model, the same playbook in play in the health industry, the disease industry, the U.S. education industry, you name it, and it goes right back to the same things. A lot of times you see the same board member CEOs that are part of all of those other components, whether it's health industry, insurance, financial, that sit on the boards of ABC and Boeing and the other things, and it just it all ties together. I just think that what you were saying before and what we're talking about, with looking more at the 9/11 movement and the direction that it's going, I think that it's pretty much stalled. There is, we're 7 years into it, 8 years into it now. Kind of jumped the shark, and I think that they did a great job of getting a lot of this stuff to implode. I think it was originally created from the outset. I think it was a completely controlled movement when you start seeing certain players involved in the way that these certain people were acting, how they build up their street cred, get propelled pretty quickly up to the tops of the ranks of this movement, and then just do something to get that component of it to implode or get you derailed off to the side into a corner to bicker back and forth about something that doesn't really matter without looking at the larger picture. And it's, to me, the more that I look at everything on the outside of it now, having looked at, because I've been looking at 9/11 stuff, getting into it heavily since about 2003, and I started to have an oh shit moment as it was actually happening today, watching them replay the towers coming down. I had a friend visiting from Germany, and I brought her into the kitchen. I'm like, come here, look at this, as they keep doing it. It's like, look, it looks like about every 10 floors in these windows from this angle, you can see these bright flashes going off. I'm like, this building's coming down. It's being imploded from the inside to make sure this thing comes down. And from that point up until about 2003, I completely forgot about it because they kept replaying the same stuff over and over again. And I forgot about it. I didn't realize that until later, that I'd even seen something like that. But I just remember Bush going into the elections, running up on all his stump speeches, talking about this coming recession. That's all he kept talking about. I just remember that. He gets placed into his dictatorship, and we're going into this recession. Then we have this 9/11 black op, and the next thing you know, we come out of the recession because now all this federal money is just flowing everywhere through the military-industrial complex, creating jobs, the security apparatus that were going on. It just seemed like it was a way to keep the U.S. economy going for just a little bit longer while they could bleed it just a little bit more. Well, that now that we're at the end of it, it's like that was one of their last-ditch attempts, and now they're just kind of run dry on everything that they're doing. And now that the economy is just completely tanking, and it looks like we're going into like a really nasty depression soon, that they probably don't have enough time to actually pull off another 9/11 style event, because it just seemed like it was a slow release, like a steam valve, that it was going to come out eventually. Mm-hmm. That there were inside components. It was a false flag operation, the whole thing. But now that we're so screwed in this economy and with what's going on, that once they finally say it on the air that it was an inside job, or however you want to say it, it's not going to matter anymore, because people are going to be standing in bread lines, trying to get something, trying to find food. There's not going to be any work, so they're really not going to care at that point. So it just kind of seems like it worked to their advantage.
Yeah, and of course, as we move away, the time does have its effect of really dampening most people's, desire or impetus or doggedness to keep on the trail of what happened on 9/11. But, and this is where I want to bring it to. One of the things that I objected to, just personally, when they started talking about 9/11 groups, calling it an inside job, my feeling was that means it's like a Bush thing. And I'm thinking to myself, people, it's not a Bush thing. It's a government thing, and it's been going on since the beginning of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
You know, McKinley, a Republican, presided over the Maine incident. Interesting also with that, when they were trying to come down to what exactly happened, it said the Army carted away a certain portion of the hull. Okay, it's like, why? And then of course they sank it to the bottom of the ocean, so nobody will ever ask again. Of course, if anybody tried to, I'm sure that there would be a problem there. Of course, they could do that now. Funny, they keep looking for the Titanic, but they never talk about the Maine.
Yeah. Well.
Well, you know, but I mean, you had a Democrat over the Lusitania, which is Wilson, and you had FDR over Pearl Harbor, Democrat. I mean, so it doesn't know any party. Government kills people when it needs to advance an agenda. They have no problem with offing any number of the herd, the masses, when they want to advance something. And guess what? They keep doing it because it always works. And it worked for a lot of the dumbhead Americans because of 9/11. But the inside job thing I always felt was attaching it to Bush, who's just another whore that they plop in the White House who does not have a clue, just like Obama doesn't have a clue. And I won't say that, Clinton and the rest of them, some of those are real slick tricksters, but they know why they're there. Nobody advances their own agenda, or you get killed. So, I mean,
you jump the reservation, you're done.
Yeah, and I mean, everybody looks at Lincoln and Kennedy. I mean, they both knew the deal. Even Lincoln knew the deal back in the mid-19th century. He understood the way things went. There were powers that be even then, and we won't get into the whole connection to the old world. But he knew what it was, and he didn't have the stomach for it or the conscience for it, and he decided he wanted to change things. Bang, you're out of here. Kennedy, same thing. He knew what the deal was. He knew the rough and tumble of everything. He signed on to it. And the unfortunate thing for everybody was that he changed his mind. Now, with Bush, I didn't get into a personal thing about Bush. I mean, the guy's an idiot. I mean, it was just horrible to have to look at for 8 years.
Oh, and painful to listen to.
Oh,
that
God,
was
it was so
part.
embarrassing. I mean, Clinton could talk the paint off a porch. We all know, but he was the biggest lying sack of shit there ever was. But at least you could sit there and go, he probably could sell me my car.
Yeah.
And at least you were okay with that. Carter was a little glib also, but nobody was better than Jack. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
But so let's get beyond the Republican thing, and this is why I want to throw it to you. One, just give me your take on whether you thought Inside Job was too buttonholed to be a Republican/Bush thing, and also, if that is the case, or even if it isn't, has the trail on 9/11, do you feel, has it cooled with the DC truthers because, like we said before, the Wicked Witch is gone?
It's with many different components. That for me, I've always hated this inside job term. People, most of the people that you see in the movement at the time over the past two administration runs for those 8 years, everybody was always trying to push it off onto Bush. And I'm like, when you look at the bigger picture, there's just no way that monkey was ever going to be able to do this. He had a lot of family involved in this whole thing, but I think that from the outset, I mean, his father is brilliant. I unfortunately had the opportunity to work for him, and Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense that I was reporting to at the time during the Cold War. Same thing with Clinton. Well, that's why you see them running around now. I keep telling everybody,
Isn't
I'm like,
that funny?
you gotta be kidding me, huh?
When you got Clinton and Bush going around?
Yeah, it's like, do not see that this is not a WWF wrestling at its finest. I mean, they've been pals since Mena, Arkansas, and running CIA drugs into that airport back then when Bush Sr. was CIA director and he was governor. I just think that with Junior, when Shrub was put in there, he was specifically placed because he was that frat boy, the idiot that people could always look at and make fun of, while Cheney is, pulling the strings behind the curtain, doing everything that he's doing, so nobody could pay attention and shed light on the crap that he was doing. So you get Bush, who is taking all the flack. He's the monkey on the side while the street vendors cranking out the music. Look at the funny monkey. it'd be easy to try to tack something on to somebody that was so hated over those 8 years, and then, and I tell everybody the same thing, that everything that they did during those 8 years, they didn't do anything wrong. They're not inept. They always want to be perceived as being Keystone Cops.
That's right, exactly.
But you keep thinking that they are Keystone Cops. The CIA, they're just an inept intelligence agency. It's all centralized, but they just can't do their job. So they can keep doing what they do best. And you get somebody in there. Everything went well with the Iraq War as far as the people who were taking control, making tons and tons of billions in cash, just completely decimating the U.S. economy and putting in their security police state. Everything went fine for them. So you create this window where all the liberals are just seething at the Bush administration, and then some of the Republicans with the what you've seen from the Patriot movement, and then you get the savior that comes in, Obama.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to save the world, and so it's like you've got it set up perfectly to where the Olbermans and the other people who were attacking so hard, which I think that those kind of people were just put in place to kind of stoke the fires for that kind of hatred, that you get somebody in like Obama, then all of a sudden people, you see how lulled everybody was into this sleepy state that finally Democrats coming back into the White House, he's going to change everything. All the liberals are going to calm down and think that they've got their savior, and God forbid should you bring up anything about 9/11 and some of the other problems that were going on, then they turn and look at you as if you're some sort of pariah, like how dare you? We've got the good person in now.
I would also suggest, because this is all scripted, at least in my mind, I think we're agreed on that you might find that Obama, playing the role that he's been given, might be playing the role of a Jimmy Carter, in which both are fresh breaths of air that are brought into D.C. because of what is perceived as Republican cronyism and corruption and such. But you may see him exit after 4 years, and I'll tell you, if there's anybody on the horizon, it's going to be Jeb.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do I care? I don't care which pharaoh sits in the Oval Office, but I'm laughing because everybody's getting all pumped up. But it could be his role to play Falstaff after in a year or two and be dismissed in ignominy out of D.C. And then guess who comes back? The Bushes with Jeb.
Yeah. Well, it's a constant good cop, bad cop scenario that they keep playing.
Yep.
That's all that it is. So, you get everybody pissed off and angry at one, and then the other guy comes in, and he's going to smooth things over. But they're still working for the same organization for the same goals. It's just, who hasn't? I'm just amazed that when you see something like this faux presidency thing with 9/11 and on all these other operations and black ops, that if you're still watching TV and you've ever watched an episode of Law and Order, I mean, they lay it out for you, how to do an investigation and how to come to the proper conclusions. It's like people figure out when they're watching TV, but as soon as they pull back from the boob tube, they don't apply it to real life.
No, they don't. They don't. That's absolutely correct. I know. And what I want to do is we could.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let's get into the thick of it. You were in the 9/11 movement in D.C., which probably has amongst some of its visitors or some of its charter members some luminaries, but that doesn't mean necessarily that it's any better than any other organization. And they've all had, I think, some problems. I mean, the one in New York is just like dysfunctional kindergarten. And then we also had that strange situation up in Albany where one guy recanted it was bizarre. And of course, Andy Sr. and Herb Smith watched all that and were like, holy mackerel, But so, I mean, what is going on? What's your assessment of what's taking place and what you experienced in the time you were there and what you came away with?
With the DC group, for the most part, has outside of the federal trolls and agents that are infiltrating it. The real people, they're really good people. It's a much older group than most of the other 9/11 groups out there that are mostly college,
Yep.
20s, some 30s, something like that. I'm the youngest one in my group. There was a high school kid that came and checked out something a few times, but I'm the young kid on the block, and I turn 40 this month. So I mean, the age range goes up to late 70s in the group, and there have been some people doing different kind of activist roles for a long, long time, for at least as long as I've been alive. It's for the most part, it just seems like a meeting where people get together and want to talk over some issues. I'd be happier if people would get together and just want to use it as a place to vent and talk about what's gone on that week. But it just seems to be, which I was railing on in the group, sending off my tirade emails. I think I sent you a couple of.
Yeah, they were good.
I might not write anything for a while, but when I do, I just can't take it anymore and just do a dump.
Yeah, they were good enough to steal, Jeff.
Yeah. It just seems like it was, for the most part, just these 9/11 truth buffets. You know, people would get there and then they'd meet at the restaurants and talk some, but just sit there and gorge and talk about some of the esoteric topics. And then it would always turn into some sort of agenda-driven meeting. It was like some bad PTA meeting. And what I kept saying was that with the style that it was set up for getting because these people were friends of mine, some people that, a couple I just don't care about, but for these events, some of these events that we're trying to put on, they were just time hogs, and we do some of the same events every year, and there's no reason why it would take 4 months to set up something to go to a county fair and put up a table and do a tabling event to get some information out to where we pay the fee and get in and push our own propaganda. But you know, we had to have this committee, and then these subcommittees report to this committee to do this, and after a while, I'm like, no, thanks. People ask me, well, do you want to help out with this committee here? I'm like, no, not at all. It should be, we should be able to take care of something like this through email, calling people. It's very easy to do. And I just got so fed up with that portion of it once Matt Sullivan, who pretty much chairs the group, and I can see that he's fighting it most of the time because he's trying to get people together to do something that is always drawn out, that people just drag out for too long. He found this other outlet. He thought about doing podcasts for a while, but there are a lot of great shows out there like what you put together that people are so good in that respect that there's, you know, why recreate something like that. So he decided to start putting together the paper, and once that started coming out, that's where I decided to start focusing my attention.
Do you feel
I'd much rather pull away from the actual group dynamics of it and spend all my time focusing on the Rock Creek Free Press and getting that out and helping with the graphics and editing, and there's a really good component of the group that I like dealing with in the DC group that focus a lot of their time now on the Rock Creek Free Press instead. So it's slowed down quite a bit, and we actually focus half our meetings now on bringing in articles for it, editing the paper, and when it comes in, we'll actually have folding and labeling meetings to where we get the stuff ready to go out by mail and get it distributed around the DC metro area to all of our news boxes. So maybe it's because it is an older component, but one of the things I said in that email that you saw was that if we're going to do something like this, stop having these meetings in these dark rooms in these restaurants where, for the younger component around D.C., they can't afford to go to these restaurants and eat. And when they do show up, it doesn't seem like anything's going on other than this PTA-style meeting agenda. Why don't we, when the weather's good, sit at, DuPont Circle or whatever, at these outside pubs and have all of our propaganda with us, our signs, the papers, and sit there, have a good time, a happy hour, but talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And most of the people in the group balked at it. There's just no way. If it was summertime, it was too hot to do it. If it was winter, it's too cold. So a few friends of mine and I would get together, and that's what we would do. We would just go sit at these places and talk about it openly in public, and that's how we could engage people in a much easier, friendly way. And people could hear us talking about it in public to the point of like, oh wow, I guess it is okay. And we would hear a few people come over, or they would hear it and come over and want to discuss what's going on. And you could just have a nice dialogue going back and forth. I mean, that's how we got that John Judge intervention interview from Kramer's that one night that you might have listened to.
Do you want to explain what happened there?
John Judge, he's a preeminent supposed researcher of the D.C. area. His claim to fame is JFK research. He runs the COPA events, the Citizens on Political Assassination. So he does a meeting every year in Dallas for Kennedy, I think Atlanta, L.A., for the different assassinations. And apart from that background, somehow he got into working with the families for 9/11 from the outset and getting on Cynthia McKinney's staff and running that component of it. So he came, I can't remember if he asked or if was invited, but he came to one of the Truth Buffet meetings that we had at one of the restaurants and was going to present a way of creating some sort of Open Records Act, kind of like what he did for the Kennedys, the Kennedy Assassination Records Act. And he just seems to be one of these kind of time wasters that will bog you down in these programs of going up on Capitol Hill and trying to get these record acts, which just take like 40 years.
But he also believes that a 757 impacted the Pentagon.
Well, that was the biggest component of what bugged my friend Lynn and Aaron and I the most. That for somebody who's a preeminent D.C. researcher, he states pretty much for his view that he says he's a 9/11 researcher, but he believes the official story completely, except for the NORAD stand down. That's his only problem with it. And he thinks that, like you said, a 757 crashed into the Pentagon.
Well, that's a big problem.
And what I point people to most of the time is years back when Dave McGowan was just tearing apart John Judge's theory behind that. John Judge has supposedly one of his best friends, a COPA member, somebody who helped, I guess, she's a JFK researcher and helped set up this COPA event, happens to be one of the sky waitresses, a flight attendant that was supposed to be on that regular flight, but got bumped for whatever reason, didn't catch that flight. Well, that flight crashes into the Pentagon, and so the Department of Defense and the government calls her up to come help out on the crash scene, and he says, well, because she's a sky waitress, and dealing with airports, she's got a security clearance. I'm like, no, jackass, completely different. Having access to an airport terminal as opposed to a government security clearance for working in intelligence matters. But he says that they called her in. They're shuttling her around the Pentagon. They take her into the hole. He first says that night, and then it turns out it's like a week later, then 9 days later. She's supposedly on the scene, walking around in this hole where this plane supposedly went in with all this debris, and she didn't see any, or what she saw were pieces of the plane, stuff that she recognized from the aircraft that she's supposed to have been flying on every week. And then they start showing her autopsy photos of the people that were on the plane, and supposedly she had seen a severed arm in one of the photos, and it had some bracelet on the arm. Of some friend of hers. Like, oh my gosh, that's my friend. There's confirmation that this thing crashed into the Pentagon. But for somebody who seems to have this access, and the government's going to call her, this JFK researcher claiming that the government killed Kennedy, they're going to call her into the Pentagon and have her confirm that this aircraft crashed in here, but she won't talk about it at all, except at one COPA event back, I think 2002, something like that. But he will not provide any information on her full name, won't show a pay stub that she actually did any of this stuff. I mean, his stories are just absurd. And two of the members in our group, long time friends of his, activist friends, questioned him on this once we brought it up to them, and they had a blowout because he just wouldn't answer any questions. He's like, I'm not going there. I don't have to answer these questions. And at that point, they're like, okay, something is definitely wrong here. And what Lynn, my friend Aaron, and I did one night while at Kramer Books down in DuPont Circle, it's this nice mixture of a bar and a bookstore, which is just fantastic. Good brew and great books. And we were sitting there late into the evening, and it was almost 12:45 when we were leaving, going through the bookstore, saying goodnight to each other, when I hear John Judge's voice. And next thing I know, Lynn and I realized that our friend Aaron is being attacked by him verbally on the other side of the bookstore. And so I grabbed my recorder. I'm like, oh, well, this is the chance to ask some of these pertinent questions of him. And we get to the other side, and at that point, we get into it with John Judge. I'm pretty much just holding the recorder between both of them as they're sparring back and forth. Aaron left in disgust because it got very heated up to that point. But Lynn did a fantastic job off the cuff asking all these questions, and I was able to record the whole thing and upload it to archive.org, where anybody can go and download it and check out and just see how absurd that this character is in being a supposed 9/11 researcher for the movement.
But do you remember I don't even know the sites there anymore. I mean, this shows you how much it means to me. Mm-hmm. It may be there in the memory hole or something like that, unanswered questions. Mm-hmm. And I mean, some of the principles that got involved in that, to me, are the biggest quislings, I think, around. And I'm sorry to say it, but I mean, Judge is one of them. Kyle Hentz, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitz, I don't know. They jumped to the front. They started taking control of this, and I don't know really where it went. But I mean, to even talk about the fact that a 700 series Boeing hit the Pentagon, I mean, is ludicrous. I mean, we're not going to go into this whole thing, but I mean, I still sit and I think about the Emperor's New Clothes. Mm-hmm. You've got two planes that disappeared upon impact, which has never happened ever in aviation history. Don't even tell me about, this, that, or the other thing. I mean, the Everglades they talk about when that plane went down here, and it's like, come on. I mean, there was plenty of stuff around. I mean, the Everglades are murky, and it hides a lot of things, but they didn't bring sharpshooters in there because there weren't any bodies floating around, and the Gators weren't interested. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's absolutely fatuous. And I mean, for someone like Judge to get on the side of that, and that whole crew, I don't know, it just stinks.
It
seems
to be that day was the only day that the laws of physics did not apply to specific plane crashes.
Yeah, in certain sections of America.
Yeah, it just they were. everything changed just for that day only. You know, it was fine up till the day of, and then the day after, as NIST seems to like to think. But that day, physics just didn't exist the way that we know it here on planet Earth.
No, and what happened was they showed ad nauseum, and I hate to use that term because I don't want to disrespect those who died in that. 3,000 person body count is horrible. But everybody,
one of those people is a cousin of mine, and I always go that angle when somebody's like, "How dare you talk about these people that way?" I'm like, "Hold on, jackass. One of those people was a family member of mine, so don't even." It's like I'm involved that way, and I'm questioning the official story.
You know what? I'm going to guess also that there are many more family members who know it stinks, but what is it going to rot? You know what I mean? But, you know, to me, if it were one of mine, in fact, you know, I had a former neighbor in Jersey who didn't come back, and another one across the street who was in security, who got transferred to Harts Mountain or Richfield Park and escaped that. But the thing is, no, I want to know what happened. Don't tell me about I'm disrespecting anybody because I'm saying, you know what you tell me stinks. So, no, it's not a matter of disrespect at all. So, I mean, they play that card all the time, and that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Excuse my French.
There's just certain protocols involved when anything like this happens, and I'm sorry, they didn't follow any of it, so I have questions. You know, when a plane crashes, NTSB is supposed to take care of it, not the FBI. There are just certain protocols that are set in stone, that it just happens that way. It was, I mean, I worked on plane crashes, part of what I did when I was in the Air Force, always investigating Air Force aircraft, pilot crashes. And, of course, the generals are always trying to, like, well, you need to make sure that it does this and it says this kind of thing, and if you're going to design this part of the component, it needs to look like this because it has to look like pilot error so that the family can't sue the manufacturer of the F-16. I mean, that stuff was just going on all the time. It was, it's just endemic of the whole system. I mean, I remember telling you that before. I think that they yanked me off Pan Am 103 as I was supposed to get on that for some mandatory vacation that I was supposed to take back to the States, me and another guy that I worked with, and heading to the airport in Frankfurt. They're like, "Oh, here, give us those tickets. We got you a different flight. You're not taking that one." And I'm like, "Well, everybody at home is expecting me to come in on this flight, so instead of Frankfurt, London, New York, down to Orlando, now I've got a direct flight to Florida." And I couldn't call anybody and tell anybody because we were literally leaving, and it was just so odd. And so when I get home, everybody's freaked out because they think, you know, I'm like a ghost walking in the door because they're watching it on the news that the flight that I was supposed to be on had crashed. So they're just, when a plane crashes, there's just debris. They're just, you know, there are physics involved. And they just like to change everything. Everybody's perception. Everybody forgets how things are supposed to work.
Anyone can go to any sites, some of them are government, about aviation air crashes through 5-6 decades. Try to find one that atomized. And we're talking about planes, and of course, I don't want to rehash old stuff, but we had that Russian airliner that dropped in the Ukraine a couple of summers ago. 35,000 feet, dropped like a brick, stuff all over the place. Engines, plane parts, unfortunately, bodies and body parts, no problem. And then you're led to believe that in Shanksville, a plane fell from about 1,500 feet into that crater, and it all just went down the magic hole.
Right.
And, of course, in the Pentagon, you have a plane with 2 6-ton engines, one down each wing, where it hits the building, and these wings fold in like blades on a Swiss Army knife. And the engines don't drop outside, nothing happens. I mean, it's absolutely insane. And of course, afterwards, and you know this too, Jeffrey, I mean, they come out and they mocked up a bunch of, beauty shots. Like that famous piece of what looks like American Airlines skin, like sitting there in the lower right-hand corner with the Pentagon in the foreground. It was like they did it at Sears.
Yeah, the prop piece, you know, the set, the movie set. And that's one thing that one component of this 9/11 movement, this 9/11 bowel movement, and how constipated it is that just how they do especially here in D.C., I mean, you've got this left-right camp. It's the Democrats and Republicans. You see it in the bars and every place. Same thing with, like, the Pentagon. Don't go there. Don't look at that information because it's just a honeypot. And then you've got this left-right component, whether they're like, oh, no, it was a plane crash there. No, there wasn't a plane that crashed there. Oh, no. And then they just keep going back and forth, talking about missiles and the other things. And then you get somebody like Craig Ranke and Aldo with CIT
That's right.
who get on. They come out from L.A. and they grab cameras and microphones and start knocking on doors. They're doing real investigative work and put together some great documentaries and all these eyewitnesses who say, well, actually, no, the plane didn't. We saw a plane, but what we saw doesn't conform to the government story. And then the whole left-right camp, all of a sudden, they get together and turn and start fighting these guys, just going, no, you guys are crackpots. It just you just see that it's a fake fight. It's like the mafia. You've got all these competing families who have no problem shooting each other, controlling their space, New Jersey, New York, wherever. But when push comes to shove, when they're being attacked from the outside, then they join forces and turn on you. And it, just with all these different areas, same thing with the Shanksville, with the towers. There's always this left-right component. You can't have a third party in there with any kind of other information. It's just because you're a crackpot, and then that's what brings out the trolls. And you can, it's so heavy on 9/11 Blogger. Talk about a dead site. That is nothing but controlled by these either feds or these blog armies, these boiler room blog armies. I think I sent you an image of one corporation that was advertising that no matter what side of the argument you're on, they will argue it for you in the blogosphere. You give them the information, and then they'll just go trolling through the net on all these sites and just attack people and create this kind of dissent and whatever it is that they have to do. As long as you pay them, they will sit there and fight your fight for you through the internet.
See, that's the sick part, is that somebody's going to profit off that. That's where it gets sick.
Yeah.
That they're going to profit off this kind of situation. And we're talking with Jeffrey Long, and he, I guess, is still somewhat a member of the DC 9/11 Truth Movement. He also was involved with the Rock Creek Free Press, which is a positive note in all this. But, I don't know how you feel about this. I'm just going to bring it up to you. If you don't want to touch it, that's fine. But I wondered also if that group has suffered from the visitation of certain luminaries, who I think are also full of dung. You want to pick up on that? That would be a yes, I think. Yeah,
I mean, you could just go off a list, and I could just pepper with some of it. Excuse me.
But we should tell the folks, Jeffrey, that you and I did have a summit meeting on one sultry summer afternoon on dirt roads with long neck Coronas between our legs in my pickup truck.
With a nice Florida setting sun.
That was awesome, wasn't it?
Sandy roads. Oh yeah, that was a good time.
And I did that just to give you some I guess, mental respite. But believe me, you're one of the only two people who ever survived a visitation with Vyzygoth. Well, actually one, because the other one, Terry from Rochester, I've not heard from again.
When you had that one bad experience in the cabin.
That was strange.
Yeah.
But good old Terry is out of Rochester, and he came down too, and we got famous down here in Elena Lakes, and I've not heard from him again. So I was glad that when you got back and everything was okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, enough of that. More stories later. Go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, there are many fishy types that I've seen come and go, and anytime you bring up any of this kind of stuff, people like, oh, you're gonna piss off a lot of people who think you should be naming names and dropping turds into the punch bowl. But at this point, this far into it, there are people who have come, stirred things up, and then just dropped off the radar. And that's the whole thing with any kind of movement where you have formed meetings and you have hierarchy and these kind of things should be grassroots, and that's what I love about what Herb and Andy are doing. They're just two guys in Utica. They just put up a blog and they go out and they talk about this kind of stuff. That way, you know, they can't be infiltrated. You know, it's just a couple guys just discussing their things. Anytime you create an organization, that's just perfect for the intel side to come and infiltrate and try to control it from the top down, or as I see it, like they've done with Operation Gladio and a few other components, or what I think they did with Al-Qaeda, you start it from the get-go. You create the terrorist organization from the top down. That way, everything that you bring in, it's a total control mechanism. So there are no surprises, and you can control the release of information.
Exactly.
But there's several people. I mean, you could name off a couple, and I could just give you.
Well, I'm going to
ideas.
because the two stories. I don't know if I'll take the first. I don't know if you had such an experience with him, but he went up and just got everything all roiled up in New York. And I think he's a phony, mainly because he spent a number of years writing books that whacked Daddy Bush and Son Bush. And then, of course, like just out of the gate, started whacking Obama. And it's like, well, what really is your purpose? I mean, so what's the solution, Webster?
Well, dealing with Webster is with like any professor that you'd have in any class. It's like no matter what you could say, it doesn't matter. They're right about everything. And I've had dinner with them a couple times through the group. We different times lived there, but in Wiesbaden, Germany, where I lived, he lived. He worked on the same street that I lived on for a while, where the base was, where he was doing some publication work at that time. But I've given him a ride home before. But every time that I do talk to him, it's like we've never been introduced before, and I don't know with him whether it's ego or it's the bad side. I have no idea.
Is it different?
With some of these people, their ego is just so thrown out there in the forefront that they're either acting like an agent, or they're just a big jackass with a huge ego. And either way, the purpose is served for the other side.
Do you think he ever divorced himself from LaRouche? Really?
I think it would be kind of hard to do. I mean, that's one thing my father said when he was reading one of those books. And once he got through the LaRouche component, he's just like, oh, God, I don't know if I can read anything about this guy now after seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And people could say the same thing about me, having done work for the CIA, NSA, and all those other jackasses. That I mean, at least I always joke about it in the group that I'm the one outed spook, and I'm like, hey, I'll show you my resume. Here it is. You can go look at the information. And
but the thing about Tarpley, though, is, I mean, you spend this time whacking two presidents. That's fine, okay. And then, of course, Obama comes around, and he's not even been elected yet, and he came out with something there. And Andy Sr. had an exchange with one of his publicists, and really what it comes down to is the guy's trying to make money. So, I mean, if all presidents suck, what does that tell you? But, of course, that isn't part of the paradigm. And the other thing I'll say, and I'll say this, and it's not Jeffrey that's saying this, and that is, to me, the LaRouchian group is nothing more than a backdoor to world government, because if they're so concerned about the United States, I find it strange that they have, global chapters, and there's some interesting stories about what happens in Europe also. And I tell you, I had dealings with Anton Chaikin, I'll say it, and Jeff Greenberg, and I think they suck. They're nasty people, and I think they suck. So anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, the only positive side I see, and only even know if it's like a limited hangout, is that 2 years back, maybe a year and a half back now, where he was outing a bunch of probable trolls at the time that definitely seemed like paid agents or cubicle blog armies working under one assumed name. And then all of a sudden, that's when the hate was sort of turned toward us in the group. And then these same groups are the same people on the blogs that attack the Rock Creek Free Press now for not being a specific 9/11 only newspaper, that we talk about all these other components. So it's pretty glaring at this point that there are so many of those paid agents out there that you just don't know either way. So it's either agent or huge ego. I could say the same thing about Jones. He's just got Alex Jones, such a sketchy background. He's kind of untouched. I mean, he puts out a lot of information out there, got a lot of people to open up and look at a lot of stuff going on. Excuse me. But again, it's like ego or agent. It's once you get that high up and you're being funded, you don't know where the money's coming from. But either way, you have the same effect of helping out the wrong side at certain points.
Well, I think the point is that yes, some money and support has been definitely injected there because, and again, I don't mean to go through this territory, but real quickly, I stopped listening to GCN. There was no RBN at the time because
Bad network.
The really bad network and the garbage can network. But I mean, he just got to be. Listen, I owe him a debt because he got me thinking. But there came a time when I'm like, something's not right here. But still, it's all right. I just thought he was very rude, and I got sick of him just stomping over guests he was supposed to interview. Like, Alex, I'm listening not to hear you, but them. In fact, Matthew Tartaglia, who was a U.S. Search and Rescue member, whom Alex had on, stepped all over that guy so badly, and I wanted to hear what he had to say, that I actually, hunted him down and got him on just to say, look, just tell me what you couldn't say on Jones's show. But, what happened also is after I left listening to them in 2004, all of a sudden Jones, who knows that government is corrupt to the bone and cannot be redeemed, all of a sudden gets behind Ron Paul, and I'm like, what is this about?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, no, man, something's up here. Something's up here. And I hate to tell people this, but you know what? I don't know what to tell you. You have to make up your own minds. But if you believe this, then understand that you're in deep sneakers and you better find a way around it. And that is, government is corrupt no matter what administration's in there. It's been a joke. They've been playing a dog and pony show for us forever. And if you don't get it now, you never will. And if you want to sit there and believe that somehow, some way, the cavalry comes down and saves you at the last minute, good for you. Ain't going to happen.
No.
Also, I just want to mention one other thing. I'm sorry, Jeffrey, I don't want to step on you, but let me get this in real quick.
Okay.
There's a website with regard to what we would call predictive programming. It was begun by an Australian by the name of John Valentini. It is imagining911.blogspot.com. He started to collate images from movies prior to 2001 with very curious references visually to 9/11. Some were in dialogue. I had gotten some also, but I gave them all to him and let him run with it. My only point is, one of the things that really struck me, because I didn't see the movie when it first came out. You remember Fight Club?
Oh, yeah.
You remember the last scene?
Where they were just blowing up the credit card
financial district, yes.
Yeah, right.
And how do those buildings go down?
With
Whoops.
well-placed internal explosive, controlled demolition style.
And that's not the only one. I mean, there's, and I still get them. I mean, people say to me, well, if that, you can find that with any kind of numerals. I'm going, well, just show me.
Yeah.
And nobody fesses up. Everybody pops off and nobody produces the stuff.
Nobody ever. It's easy for them, just like they do with the pundits. They'll throw it out there. It's like, well, you show me some other aspect of it. It's like, I don't have to. I have these questions. You need to prove your side. It's like there's something screwy with the story, and I'm just asking questions. You prove the other point. That's all you got to do. But they never want to do that. They just want to completely...
No, they want to pull you down, but they won't do anything as far as research goes or anything that might obviously counter their cognitive dissonance. And I know it's horrible. I understand that.
Yeah.
But that's life. That's the way it's been, and that's what these people have to understand. That's the way of the world. And and the government could not care less about us. And those who run the government, who don't run for office, could not care less for us. And I just want to mention one thing. There was a book that was sent to me by somebody who's done some work on 9/11, John Gannon, who is now out of California. He sent me the book City in the Sky, The Rise and Fall of the World Trade Center. I'll read this later on, as I have also some text from if you might remember some PBS broadcast, The Center of the World and Why the Towers Fell.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to go and whack somebody upside the head for what happened on 9/11, go find the Rockefellers. Really. They put them up and they took them down.
Yeah. You look at it when people talk about, oh, were you talking about some conspiracy where some people got together and they created this out of a boardroom? I'm like, well, yeah, that's where these people sit, and they always sit in boardrooms, and that's where they do their daily business, and usually in secret. But it's a confluence of interests across the board. You don't have to have every component of it, everybody sitting in some grand boardroom talking about what they're going to do on 9/11. But you have all of these vested interests that people, it's just like the mafia. It's just, everybody just wants a little piece. Everybody's like, oh, well, I could help out with this component of it because, I'll get this. Having those towers come down serves so many purposes that the shock and awe for everybody on TV, blaming it on the fake boogeyman, bringing down those elephants in the middle of Manhattan, which were so outdated, where nobody was even renting space in it, really. It was practically empty. I mean, it was just, they were dinosaurs. And so they're just making the money off of it through the financial scam, through all the insurance, AIG and everybody else. There are just so many different components where any sociopath that's a part of those groups, the CFR and everybody else, that they just start talking about it and like, oh, wow, I could do this component of it and make this part of it. And then at the same time, nobody's going to turn on each other. I mean, this whole thing that you'd have to have so many people involved to pull something off like this. Somebody's going to talk. Well, we've seen there have been thousands of people who have talked about it, but when you have these same board members controlling the media, it's not going to come out mainstream. So Ma and Pa America is not going to buy off on it because they're not going to hear anything about it until they do hear it on mainstream. On the side of, did you hear about these crazy, wacky 9/11 conspiracy theorists and their aluminum hats? That's the only time that they do bring it up.
Honestly, I would say the formula for conspiracy domination is real easy. Corner the money, corner the information outlets, corner the government, and you're in. Because after you corner the government, you avail yourself of their military. And that is the history of the United States in the 20th century. And that's it. That's easy. That's how they did it. And you can look at Morgan, Carnegie, and Rockefeller as the main proponents on this side of the Atlantic, and the Rothschilds on the other. Yeah, it is a conspiracy, and that's the way the world runs, folks. But, of course, those same conspirators have brainwashed everybody into hearing the phrase conspiracy, and now in their minds, if they were to write down the definition, would say false rumors. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it was a couple of those guys, I can't remember the names, they coined the term conspiracy theorist. It was the mid to late 50s at some point, where they immediately threw it out there and then just started tagging it with all the negatives.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's interesting, because I did see it pop up in 1964 in response to a book written by two gentlemen, not Woodward and Bernstein, called The Invisible Government. And I went and I took a look in Newsweek at the review of the book, and they called them conspiracy theorists. But remember, that was born also out of the JFK situation. Mm-hmm. If you found it back in the 50s, that's even richer. So, I mean, either way.
Well, from what I'm remembering, this was just right at the tail end of the 50s. It seemed like 57, 58, in time to get that ingrained in time for that Dallas Dog and Pony show.
And also the whole fake missile crisis thing.
Right.
Which we lived through and believed it was very real, but to me it was still a show that faked brinksmanship, but of course wasn't really there. And so, yeah, you're right. And I tell you what, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I can only trace it back to 64, but the fact that it might have occurred within 10 years earlier is only to show folks that, and this happens all the time, you start saying things to people that they don't hear on or see on mainstream media or in print media, and the first thing they go is, "Oh, well, you're a conspiracy." No, stop right there. Okay, stop right there, because just because you don't get it from mainstream news or information outlets does not mean that it's not true. There is a conspiracy, and you better wake up, because that's the way the world's been run for like millennia.
Hmm.
And
Well,
the
that's
reason
why
huh?
that's why we saw within the first 2 hours of that 2-hour movie on September 11th, they immediately started pushing the Al Qaeda angle, and certain few people came out of the woodwork that were just all of a sudden these authorities, these pundits, talking about the backstory on all this, and you're like, well, how do you know this already?
Yeah,
If
they
you don't
had
already
no
have it script.
They had no idea. The whole intelligence network had no idea this was going to happen. And within 60 minutes, they had all the perps.
Hmm.
No interviews, no going into backgrounds, no arrests, and they had it all down.
Yeah,
we had give me a break.
We had somebody in the group, his mother, well, sort of the sketchy guy. His mother, friend worked with some guy in some political campaign somewhere, who this guy turns out to be, at this point, chief of staff for Obama in his office up on Capitol Hill. And I think he had just been tapped to be one of the Democratic forerunners on that side through that whole show. And so he got us a meeting to go up there. He pulled in a couple of us. It was our friend Lynn, Dr. Laura Chamberlain, a couple other people. There was
It's okay, I can't help you.
father of Star Wars. I can't remember his name right now. It just escapes me. It'll pop in. But there are about 6 of us in there up in Obama's office, and we were there specifically to talk about 9/11 issues and show them a few things. And of course, Obama was too busy to meet, but he had his chief of staff do this, and so we get in there in this meeting room, and we show him just a 3-minute clip to start off. I'm thinking of Dr. Bob Bowman.
Okay, I got you.
That's who. So we go to show him this chief of staff this 3-minute compilation, all just about World Trade Center 7, about that aspect of it coming down, and I think at the time we also showed the Jane Stanley video of how she reported how it collapsed 20 minutes before it actually did. And so this guy was floored. He thought he was going to have us in there for 10 minutes. He goes back, talks to Obama about something, because he's got to go off on some junket somewhere, comes back in. He keeps us in there for almost another 40 minutes as we're showing the stuff, and his mouth's on the floor. He had never seen any of this stuff before. So, of course, he says he's going to take it to him and try to get something done. And this whole time I'm like, it's not going to happen, I was there part of it because I was asked to come along. But at that point, I'm thinking, this guy's going to be propelled forward. And since he's already been picked by the Democrats to be a part of this dog and pony show, there ain't no way he's going to touch it.
No.
Even if he was JFK-like and was going to jump the reservation, it's not going to happen. But then you look at who his handler is with Brzezinski, and it just all the stuff falls into place. Just sorry, you're just not going to. He's just a puppet.
Yeah, and in the financial crisis that's been contrived also, but is very real and hurts very much, has also done much to keep anybody from trying to importune Obama about 9/11, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. One thing I did want to ask you about, one person, because we talked about it, and he makes me hurl every time I hear him talk, and that is Fetzer, Uncle Fester.
Oh, God.
What is his deal?
I just don't trust the guy. I definitely think that he's opposing forces. This other friend of mine that talks to him all the time, she's put it up to him, but it's like, everybody thinks that you're this way. Why are you? Fetzer thinks that Obama's going to save things. That he still believes in this left-right paradigm. I'm like, how the fuck could you you actually believe that you're supposed to be this professor and a conspiracy researcher, and you had a radio show, and with everything that you know that's going on, and with all the Judy Wood stuff,
Oh, God.
you're going to believe in the left-right paradigm of that WWF wrestling faux match.
But if you think about it, how much different is it from Judge? They both did decent work on the JFK thing.
Well, you set yourself up. It's that street cred angle.
Right.
You do something that gets your background story going, and then the next thing you know, you get propelled through the movement. I mean, and this will tie right back to Fetzer again, that whole Judy Wood thing at the press club with Greg Jenkins, Dr. Greg Jenkins. It's that right there seemed like a whole setup. And I think, like what I mentioned to you before, it's that you give the most credible person a little bit of the good information, 80% bad, and then they run with it. And then you give the bad one the complete opposite.
Well,
where, go ahead.
No, what I want to ask you about, let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Jenkins is the individual who's in that YouTube with Judy Wood who looks like absolutely befuddled by what Judy's telling him.
Yeah.
Dark hair, glasses.
Yeah, physicist.
Okay. Now I think you intimated to me, and clear this up if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
that might have been a dog and pony show too, and/or
I think so.
he apparently had a nose-to-nose with Fetzer, which everybody thinks also was staged. Well, not everybody, but some people do.
Well, the few of us that were standing around, because Fetzer had just done this presentation in the press club, and with Judy Wood there, and with his slide show that he talked about all of her stuff, but he didn't let her get up and speak.
That was a plus.
Yeah. Well, they had scheduled, Greg had scheduled this interview to do afterwards with her. And so Fetzer's up against the wall. They're in the other side of the press room. There's about 10 of us in this room from the group watching. And I didn't know that this component was going on, but I'm like, oh, okay, sure. I'll go watch this part. And as it starts going in, it's completely different than the feeling you get. It's bad enough watching the video. It's just kind of painful to watch.
It is.
But in the room, the tension got so high. I mean, you could just feel it in the room. Everybody was just looking at each other, just going, "What is going on? I just don't get this." After that part of the interview was over, and unfortunately the cameras had stopped rolling, with the girl who was filming it started packing everything up. Fetzer comes over and immediately gets into Greg's face, and they just start having a huge argument, or they're screaming and spitting on each other. And Greg at one point gets up, they're pointing at each other, bumping chests, like some sort of like stupid high school fight. And at one point, Greg smirks, and then Fetzer smirks, and they almost start cracking up, but then they gain their composure. And my friend Lynn and a couple other people over there, they're like, everybody's just like, "Wait, did you just see that? What the hell was that?" And then they get back into this fight, and so we're trying to figure out, okay, why were they about to crack up? That just seemed very odd. And they continued it. They supposedly had, we had somebody come over to break up this fight to keep them apart from each other. But then it carried over into the hall out front, and then later down into the main part of that lobby, they got into it again. And at that point, a few of us were like, this seems really staged. There's just something very bizarre going on. And that point, I just started to have a lot of questions because, again, with the whole Greg Jenkins thing, it just fits that model of street cred, build yourself up, and then implode somehow. And I'm sure that plenty of people in the group are just going to get pissed at me about this one. But he's just one of the people that it's extremely fishy. Very fishy, that I just don't trust.
What would have been the benefit of those two having a fake brouhaha? Would that have been to support the fact that Judy Wood got it together?
I think for one aspect of it is that with everything that everybody researches, just like with her particle beam stuff, that we know with Tesla, he developed the particle beam weapon back in the 30s that the government was very interested in. But you give a damaged person like Judy Wood something that the government is probably working on, might not have used it in that capacity, but you give her something that's very real to a damaged person, they put it out there. Next thing you know, you've got this crackpot running around talking about something that's a very real DOD kind of black project that you immediately give it the tinfoil hat stamp of approval. So it's almost a way of telling people, don't look at anything outside of controlled demolition or anything else that fits this left-right fight that's going on all over the place in these 9/11 movements with their research. You can only look at two different things. You can't bring in some outside idea, science research, anything else. It's just taboo. So I think that was set up to make any kind of outside theorizing out of what the official 9/11 movement deems appropriate to talk about. I don't think that personally particle beams, space platforms were involved in something like that. I don't think you would need it to bring down those kind of towers for what we saw. But yeah, the technology exists, but we're not going to be able to talk about it, and we're certainly not going to be able to prove any of it. So you just kind of make somebody look very bad to where you can't go back and even question it because it's always going to be tagged as, oh, that Judy Wood thing. So you just kind of kill it right from the get-go. So you have somebody who's a supposed preeminent research physicist attacking her absurd theories, and then you have her handler, Fetzer, doing the whole good cop, bad cop kind of thing again, the same scenario. So you just kind of get it to implode right from the get-go.
Well, I'll tell you what, he was late to the show. He came in, I don't know how many years after, 2001, because I had interviewed him about Kennedy a couple of times, and the last time it was about Wellstone.
Uh-huh.
My memory may not be correct, but I think at that time he thought that 19 Arab hijackers were involved. He made a comment about it. I don't remember. That's what strikes me. I may be wrong, but so I mention it because I think I'm right, but I have to go back and take a look. But still in all, he comes late to the show, and as I've said, he jumps to the head of the food line. And I'm like, well, so why am I listening to this guy? Because he's a professor emeritus at Minnesota Duluth. So what?
Right.
So
right.
what? And then he gets involved with Bowman and this ridiculous, effete, snobbish 9/11 Scholars for Truth with their Illuminous Torch logo. Great. And then he blows that thing up between him and what's his face, Jones. And I said Bowman. I don't think it was Bowman. It was Kevin. What's his face?
Ryan.
Nah, it was the guy that's a professor in Wisconsin.
Kevin Barrett.
Yeah, Barrett. And I'm like, okay. And if you look at Barrett's side, he's all into one world religion and all this stuff. So it's like, where are you going with this? So, so Fetzer came in like a dervish, blew everything up as far as I can see with the scholars and this whole thing. And like, what good did you do? And, it's just that, yeah, you're right.
Well, they just created, with what they did with the Scholars Group, they just created another faction of the left-right paradigm, where you get the two fighting, competing camps, to where you can only talk about these two sides and nothing else. That a component of that ties back into the Greg thing, which I think I mentioned to you before. That here you have someone like Greg Jenkins who could be a good guy. If he is, I do apologize, but he's just fitting the mold, and at this point, I just really don't care. He when I first started going to the D.C. meetings, he pulled me aside, wanted to know my background, just starts talking about his components, his background in physics, and starting to pull me into some busy work. He did the same thing with a group of the people with some of his research paperwork. It's like, here, I want to give this stuff to you guys so you can help me vet this information, and then they get all their names attached to the document, and so he publishes it. So if anything does go south about any of that kind of research, then there are all these people who are tagged as being a component of something very negative. So one thing that I noticed for his background, he's supposed to be a physicist from University of Maryland. At the time, he was just doing a stay-at-home dad thing. His wife was working, and all he did was play jazz gigs. He got out of the physics thing for about 4 years while he was in the DC group. So he's playing jazz gigs. This physicist, here, I've got some ideas. Let me just take 4 minutes of your time in the group, talk about the stuff about controlled demolition. And then it seemed like every meeting that we had, he would spend almost an hour going over, as if it was a physics class, building himself up to the point to where he's publishing these papers. He does the Judy Wood thing, that interview, that makes him look good through the blog circles. Next thing you know, you've got Jones, Stephen Jones, mentioning him and his great physics work on CNN and Fox and some of these other places, naming him by name and his physics background. Dr. Greg Jenkins this, to the point to where it seems like he's building his street cred.
Right.
And then I started noticing that with my friend Aaron, at one of the meetings, this lawyer came into the library where we were having a meeting, and the guy was interested in some of the information, just wanted to sit back and kind of soak it in. Aaron starts talking to him. He's like, oh, if you want any information or have any questions, just ask me. Here's a DVD or some other information you can read. Immediately, Greg goes over there in the middle of this conversation, inserts himself, and just starts blathering on about physics and controlled demolition, and completely freaks the guy out. And we've seen him do it a couple times. So what Aaron and I did was bring in a friend of mine into one of our DC meetings, and we're like, okay, we're going to go in. We think somebody's acting fishy in a certain way, and he's going to do these certain things. He's kind of acting out of the COINTELPRO playbook. So we brought him in, pretend that you're new to the 9/11 stuff you just heard about the meeting. You come in late, and so our friend comes in about 30 minutes late to the meeting, and we wound up getting kind of two people at the same time. Dave Schlesinger was acting the same way. He's got a fishy background as well, kind of the same as Greg's. And what he does, he comes in, Dave immediately tries to get it from the table. He wants to get my friend's name, address, phone number, all the email addresses, all kinds of contact information, write it down, not even explain why he wants it, sit back down and just record the information. Well, Greg sees my friend come in after he's sort of been introduced, and after he finishes his physics speech, he goes, runs around to the other side of the room, grabs my friends, like, come on, let's go outside and talk. He runs to the street downstairs outside the restaurant, goes on for 2 hours about controlled demolition, the physics involved, about earth energies it would require to bring this, that, and the other down. And after that, he goes, well, that's probably enough information for you to digest right now. And my friend was like, well, I'll just come back upstairs and say goodbye to everybody. He's like, oh, you don't need to do that. There's nothing going on with this group anyway. You can just leave from here. I'll just tell everybody you said bye, but it's just not really worth your time. So he's doing everything possible to keep him from going back upstairs. And it seems like that's been going on for a while, that's why the group has never grown, because people sort of get sideswiped as they come in, want some information, and these people never show up again. And so that's why we did this with our friend, and so Greg did exactly what we thought he was going to do. And I had left the following week to go take care of my father in California. My friend Aaron goes back to the meeting, He's like, I just want everybody to know what went on last week. It was a little bit underhanded, but we just kind of had to do this, and just kind of laid it out to the group. Greg, you did exactly what you thought we were going to do. We brought in this guy. He's a friend of ours. We brought him in sort of as a plant, which some people could see as being negative and shady, but we brought him in because you're acting shady, and so it's somebody else. And we just wanted to see if you're going to do exactly what we thought you were going to do, and you did. And you scared this guy off. You held him outside the group and went through the whole thing. And when Greg heard this, he just, Aaron said that he just kind of put his hand in his face, started rubbing it really hard, rubbing his hair, pushed his hands through his hair, and it seemed like after that point, I think it was a couple weeks after that, he just stopped coming to the group meetings. Oh, the meeting prior to that, which kind of led us into that, I got to at least mention that one part. After all this physics and research background that he was pushing through the group, publishing these papers through scholars and being mentioned on CNN, he tells the group at one of his last hurrahs explaining this stuff that he actually thinks that the buildings came down, as the government said, it was a gravitational collapse. There was enough energy involved for the building to pretty much completely vaporize.
Because of the impact of a 700 series Boeing.
Right. That whatever caused the building to start collapsing, there was enough gravitation for the computers, the floors, the concrete, everything to completely explode, be thrown out 600 feet, and the whole thing. And that point, everybody in the group just started standing up like, what the hell are you talking about? You got to be kidding that this was a gravitational collapse.
Yep.
And then he told Matt, he's like, I think you're going to have to change your controlled demolition cards because all that stuff's wrong now. You're going to have to reprint this with some new information. Everybody was freaking out. So it was right after that we brought our friend in to do this, that after that, Greg kind of disappeared for a couple weeks. He shows up at the John Judge event. Nobody recognized him because he had completely shaved his head to skin, practically, just almost completely bald. And you know how long his hair and everything was, so nobody even recognized him. He sat behind a friend of mine. At the end of the meeting, everybody says, oh, Greg, we didn't realize you were here. And he didn't say anything the entire time. He just kind of stared at John Judge. And from that point on, he was never to be seen again. He chimed in twice in the email group during that year. But other than that, he completely vaporized and then wound up somehow, after doing 4 years of playing jazz and conspiracy research and being talked about heavily on TV, to getting a physics chair over at University of Maryland, talking to the next group of kids who are going to be learning about faulty science. So and when I try to find information about him on the internet, every time I pull up Dr. Greg Jenkins with his background in physics, I pull up this tall black professor who's teaching at Howard University in D.C. But there's just this huge gap where he just doesn't exist, where he's just kind of disappeared. So I have a huge problem with something like that, and I've talked about that within the group before. Some people roll their eyes, but then again, I'm one of the guys who brought in my friend to out a bad situation. And the other component of it is that Greg Jenkins is always, while he was doing stuff with scholars and publishing, he was always citing commentary and research in his scientific papers by an anonymous blogger that's always on 9/11 Blogger and all these other sites, somebody that goes by the name Arabesque, that nobody knows any information about. But for a scientific research sites, something like Scholars, who everybody has the bona fides up there, their background, their where they went to school, where they published their papers, their degrees, to have these people cite an anonymous internet blogger as an authoritative source in any of their papers, right? They're just, throws a huge wrench into the mechanism for me. That's where I see that the whole thing is just a fraud.
All right, now on a positive note, and no, hey, look, it had to be said. It had to be said. But you're telling me now that you feel your best bet as far as channeling your energies with regard to all that's happened is with the Rock Creek Free Press.
Definitely. It's I think it's a great paper. It's Matt's baby. I've written an article or two for it. Like I said, I help out with some of the graphics and go there with friends to edit the paper as it's getting ready for a publication. But he started out something that is a great outlet, and it covers so many different facets of all the crap that is going on that it's heavy with the health issues.
Yeah.
Because it's an easy way. It might only have one or two 9/11 components in there, but when you get people to shake their head and go, yeah, see what the FDA is doing here, and Rumsfeld's doing with aspartame over here, or the vaccines. Once they get that aha moment that the government's screwing with them about their personal health, I think bringing down a couple towers is the easy part to get over. It's when they're injecting you with poisons, killing you off slowly to the point that you will live long enough to be able to have your bank account sucked dry for big pharma, but not long enough to where you reach Social Security age to tap into that component. Then
Sure.
they just then they've got you. And I know that every once in a while there'll be articles in there, the stuff that I'm just I'm not a fan of. One article was put in there, even though it was some good information. It was by somebody who I think is a known troll in the 9/11 movement. But again, some of these people will still put out good information because they're building up their street cred. So the article is good. I just don't trust some of the people behind some of those things. It's just there's plenty in there for everybody across the board, but you're not going to be able to make everybody happy all the time. It's just not going to work out that way. It's just not going to happen.
Also, I'll just mention something too. The Fed's got another thing cooked up just to, for our well-being. And like Cool Hand Luke said, why don't you stop being so good to me? Take a look at HR 875. HR 875. Go to thomas.loc.gov, pop that in, and the Fed's going to expand their purview just to make sure we're not getting poisoned by truck farmers and fruit stands. So, that's a short version. But check that out by all means, because it's like I said, with the FDA, that's like one of the leading killers in America. Yeah, please check out those guys by all means. And of course, with this also,
Administration.
huh?
The Food and Death Administration.
Yeah, and the Centers for De's creation, So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Again, we've been speaking with Jeffrey Long, and he is with the Rock Creek Free Press. He's had a turn with the DC 9/11 Truthers, which probably will end as soon as this goes up. And you'll have a bullseye on your back, bro.
Oh, yeah.
But the one thing I want to ask you is, have you ever had a beer at the Hawk and Dove?
I have.
Okay.
Nice, wonderful, seedy little place.
That's why I called it home. I left the Hoover Building before I went to Union Station. I went to the Hawk and Dove.
Oh, yeah, and it's still around, too.
Imagine that. Hey, listen, thanks a lot for being with us. And if you have any more, any parting comment, by all means, I don't want to cut you off, but you got the last word.
Yeah, not much to say. It's just I really feel good about what we're doing, putting out the Rock Creek Free Press. Anybody can subscribe to it. It's a free paper. We just ask that if you find it in your heart and in your wallet in this recession, to maybe donate $20 for the subscription. It helps cover the cost of postage, and that's it, because everything else comes out of pocket for printing out this paper, because we don't take any advertisers to fund this and actually muddy the waters, and there isn't really room for the amount of content that's put through the paper. And this is it was a great idea by Matt putting it out, and it's just kind of taken a life of its own. So I like spending my time with it. And like you said, I'm sure I've ruffled many a feather in the DC group, specifically Greg Jenkins. But we'll see if an email pops in from him through there, or if I get a personal email. We'll see, since all this stuff is kind of monitored anyway. But I just don't think that, like with what Andy and Herb are doing, they're doing it right. It's when you don't have a huge group with board meetings, you actually get things done, and you can talk about topics that are on the fringe, even for groups talking about known conspiracies. There's still too many control mechanisms and personalities involved that everybody's afraid of stepping on somebody's toes. But for everything that's going on, as bad as everything's getting, I'm just not really worried about that anymore.
Yeah.
The information's just too important, and if anybody's bothered by it, they can just grab me at the next meeting and
wring your neck.
ask what's going on. But they've gotten plenty of my rants and emails, so they know exactly where I'm coming from.
All right. Well, listen, if all else fails, you know where you can find me.
Yep.
And it never changes down here, so don't worry about it. Listen, Jeffrey Long, thanks a lot for being with us, and we'll be in touch, no problem. And I thank you for coming on.
All right. Thanks, Keith.
All right, bye-bye, bro.
Bye.